Round one of the NBA draft is in the books, and of course, Duke and checks notes. Rutgers dominated the top five as they always do in the NBA draft. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Happy Thursday. Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. You're joining me at the place to get your college basketball content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you so much for making us your first listener watch to get your college basketball content. We want to remind you, you can catch every episode ad-free on Amazon Music. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Special shout out to all the everydayers here with us, and of course, all the great Locked On College Basketball Discord members. It's great to see all of you. Joining me on the show today is our guy, DeShaun Tate. It's so good to be together. He's got some great looking background going on. We have meticulously curated that thing as we got the show going here. And DeShaun, I must say, it looks phenomenal. For those of you only listening and not watching, you are missing a glorious display of Hawks and Michigan State and other paraphernalia. My man, way to go. So coming up on the show today, DeShaun and I are talking about the NBA draft first round that happened last night, Wednesday. It's in the books. We're going to have reactions to a college-heavy first round of the draft. And then in the third segment, we'll wrap the show talking about the Kansas Jayhawks loading up with some more personnel in both the front and backcourt over the course of just the past 2 days. Great stuff for Bill Self. My man, DeShaun, let's get into this thing right out of the gate here. Of course, as expected, Cooper Flagg goes number one, but he and his teammates go 3 times in the top 10 picks. Cooper Flagg, 1 overall to the Mavs, Con Knippel 4th to the Hornets, and Kaman Malawach 10th. And ends up picked by the Rockets, is going to end up going to the desert with the Suns, along with Mark Williams, a little Twin Towers action. Is this as expected for Duke, or did any of that catch you by surprise?
No, that was as expected for Duke. I think that I sometimes curious to know what that next level looks like, especially for all of these guys, if I'm just being really transparent.
Yeah.
I think Cooper Christ kind of speaks for himself with the number one pick, and obviously the team that he's going to and how that has to fit and work. What they're going to do from the point guard perspective, I think is a whole different conversation because they don't have anybody in place, especially after Kyrie Irving has gone down and probably not anticipating that he's going to be able to play right away as soon as the season opens up. But nonetheless, I think that kind of speaks for itself, that we'll learn what type of player that he is. But as far as like Cotton Knuppel, I don't know. You're looking at the guy who's probably not the biggest Con Knuppel fan, but not the biggest Con Knuppel hater either. So I think it's still kind of TBD, I guess, to be determined a little bit. Is he more along the lines maybe of like Corey Kispert, or I get it, stand and shoot kind of guy? Probably brings a little bit more offensively with going to the cup, but I don't think he has the springs in his leg that someone like a Kispert has. So obviously we'll see. But jump shooting out in Charlotte, which is something that they need, I think was very fitting. And then last but not least, you got somebody like a Malawach who's going to be able to do more than enough rebounding for some of the players that they still have there after losing Kevin Durant. But being able to provide themselves with not just one but now 2 rim protectors, as you've mentioned. And I don't know, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit when I saw him go out there against Houston and being the biggest guy on the floor, over 7 feet with 0 rebounds. That's right, a straight goose egg. I wasn't really thrilled with that idea, but nonetheless, it's really kind of hard to go against someone like a Malawach with his youth and his ability to finish in the pick and roll type situations. Can't teach size, so it's kind of as anticipated a little bit.
Yeah, I'm with you, DeShaun, on Knippel in particular. I mean, it's funny because Ace Bailey and then Trey Johnson go in the next 2 picks right after him. If you're the Hornets brass, would you have maybe gone to one of those guys instead?
I think so. I think that, obviously every team can use some shooting.
Sure.
I think that that's pretty obvious, and what someone like a Trey Johnson who's a good shooter, and someone like a Ace Bailey who's a difficult, he's a big time shot taker and a big time shot maker.
Yes, he is.
Selection a little bit on the questionable side, but it's almost like no, 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 don't. Good job. At least he made it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, but I think this is one that Charlotte will eventually look back on and say, well, we probably took maybe not the wrong guy, but just went with, I guess, more of kind of what is considered to be more of a safe
Safe. That's a good word.
pick to a degree. Yeah, I think that's kind of what they were thinking, but not exactly what I would have done. But I mean, Ace Bailey is a guy, in my opinion, who, obviously everybody knows about him not working out for teams and whatever else, what have you. I know there's probably some mixed feelings or emotions about going to Utah and whatever else, what have you. I've been to Salt Lake City, so I kind of can't blame him, respectfully. But nonetheless, I mean, listen, these are all top talented guys and some of the best guys that we've seen in the country. You add that with a ton of potential, uh, tagged on to each of these players who we've seen picked in the lottery, let alone the first half, which is what we're talking about. And I don't have too many gripes about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I like your point there about Knipple being a safe pick, right? If we're talking floor and ceiling, the dude's got a high floor, but I think he does, kind of as you're alluding to, have a lower ceiling than would a Bailey or a Johnson, right? And so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in Charlotte with maybe a wilder Mr. Ball playing there. Now, we talked about Ace Bailey, and just like Duke had 2 picks in the top 5, so did Rutgers, which we talked about this time last year. Everyone kind of expected it with Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, but obviously there's been the Bailey downturn with, as you said, him not working out. I don't think he tumbled as much as maybe some people thought he would. It's kind of funny. He didn't want to go to the Jazz. They say, we don't care. We want you. And you go where you're drafted. So Dylan Harper, as expected, goes 2 overall to the Spurs. My goodness, they're building something there in San Antonio, DeShaun. It's crazy. But with Bailey, right? That means now that both of the following statements I'm going to give to you, DeShaun, are true. Rutgers University last year went 15-17 overall and 8-12 in Big Ten play. Also, Rutgers University had 2 future first round top 5 picks on that same roster. I cannot line those 2 things up, make sense of it for me.
I can't make sense of it for you either, to be honest with you. And I'm not sure I can make sense of a whole lot of things, but that's definitely one that I'm not really confident that I'll be able to make a whole lot of sense of. I mean, they didn't really have a fantastic team outside of those 2 guys either.
Right.
You look at some of the success that they had prior to those 2 guys coming in. Steve Pikiell has done a great job, maybe not as much of a great job as he did this year with recruiting, but being able to put players together that can play well together, and had been with one another for quite some time, and it just didn't work out that well for Rutgers, obviously. But no, I like Bailey. Sometimes I want to like him a little bit more, but I do like that edge that he comes with. I do like that dog. When you look at what they were able to do tonight with, bringing in some of the guys, you put him and Colin Sexton together, and then you got Jordan Clarkston. You're checking that quote unquote dog box, if
Yeah.
you will. They
Yeah.
definitely got some of those guys. So, and then again, I mean, I think it's just one of those things where it's lessons learned, but they're glad that they spent the kind of time that they did together in Rutgers. I'm sure they had a fantastic time being big man on campus there in Piscataway.
That's a good word, man. Let's talk surprises, DeShaun. Was there anything from round 1? Obviously, we just talked about the Jazz just going ahead anyway and taking Ace Bailey. Maybe it's that, maybe it's something else. Anything from round 1 that really stood out to you in a surprising way, whether it was a guy falling, a guy going earlier than expected, any of the big trades? What stood out to you in a surprising way?
Surprising may have been Cedric Coward, who had played and not played. I use that term a little bit loosely just because of how much we didn't see of him. Obviously, putting in some time at I think it was at Eastern Washington at one point in time,
Yep.
maybe at
And then
JUCO, and
Wazoo.
then
Yep.
and then Wazoo as well, and then the commitment to Duke, which I think helped him in this process, get some more eyeballs on him before he goes on and tears it up at the combine, which ultimately kind of helped put him over the top. That was a little bit surprising for me because I'm not sure that he was on a lot of people's radar, even those who are like serious hoop heads. But it worked out for him, and getting the top, what is that, 11 pick or something
Yeah,
along
he was
those
11.
lines. So,
Yep. Yep.
or but outside of that, I think the other one was the Chinaman and
Yes.
Hansen.
Hansen. Yeah.
Yeah, Hansen, excuse me. That one was a little bit of a head scratcher. Probably again another guy that wasn't on a ton of people's radar, but again, you can't teach the size, and he's definitely going to have that adjustment period coming into the league. But I think you could pretty much say that for just about every player who has had their names called here on tonight, and that's Cooper Flagg included in that
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. What I thought was cool about Hansen is, even though, I'm with you, that was a shock to me, him going that high. I love that he was there. Like, I really like it when the non-green room invites
Hmm.
still come and be there to hear their name called and have that moment to go up on stage. There was another college player that wasn't a green room invite that was true of him tonight. I'm not going to remember it in real time, and I'm not going to make us waste time as I try to remember who it was. But man, I think that was so cool. A couple surprises for me, in addition to the ones you said. Walter Clayton going in the teens. I thought he would be in the 20s somewhere, or maybe even, whatever. But he's a dog. He's a winner, right? And him going along a little bit earlier. Will Riley going 21st overall from Illinois. One pick after Kaspers Yakichonis, who I actually thought went a lot lower than I thought he would. Him still being
Me too.
around at 20. Who was it? The Heat. The Heat are
Mhm.
probably like, oh, you're still here. Cool. We're snatching you up. And then so funny, one more pick right after Will Riley at 21 was Drake Pallet, 22. He's not even there in the green room. He's having a watch party back in North Carolina. And so those were some shocks right there, all around that 18 to 22 kind of for me, DeShaun. Either some guys falling or coming up higher than expected. Go ahead.
I agree with you on that. I think the obvious answer here for guys who probably had themselves quite the NCAA tournament appearance, that has helped themselves a whole lot. You always hear about at least one or two guys that not a lot of people probably paid a bunch of attention to. Some of them from high major programs, or power four or five, wherever, whatever number that we're at this point in time. That being Walter Clayton with winning MOP for the Final Four, but I think the other one here probably was Neat Clifford,
Ooh,
out of
Colorado
Colorado
State.
State.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think he helped himself a lot in this position with the little mini run that they went on, and able to win a game or two during March Madness. Really, you know. Put himself on a lot of people's radars, and I think he did himself a fine job in the tournament, and putting himself right there in position to hear his name called tonight. Him and Clayton, I think, are right there in the mode of that conversation.
Man, that's great stuff. Well, y'all, this draft started with 11 straight college basketball players. 24 in total came off the board in the first round. DeShaun and I in a minute are going to talk about how neat it is for college basketball to be seeing a return to dominating the draft. My man's raising his eyebrows because he loves it. And what if I told you that one singular high school team had 4 first-round picks on it from Thursday night just a couple years ago? We'll talk about all of that coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about Monarch Money, do you ever wish managing your money felt a bit easier? Well, with Monarch Money, it can. So whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility of and control over all of your finances. So Monarch Money, what I love is that it's more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center where you can track all your accounts, your investments, and all your spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth for yourself, hopefully future generations as well. Something I found that I really love is having everything financial all right there in one app. So instead of having to use a bunch of different apps or remember it, or having a folder on my phone full of financial apps, I just go straight to Monarch. That makes managing the day-to-day so much easier. So join me, take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Again, that's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. DeShaun, the last several years, we've seen a lot more international guys at the top or flooding the first round. We've also seen G League Ignite and OTE and some other places come in and take some of those top slots. Obviously, NIL said, get out of here, G League Ignite, you're done. And so that's nice. But what's really neat about this draft, DeShaun, 11 straight college players, the first 8 of which, by the way, were all freshmen to start this draft. 24 of the first 30 picks were all from the college ranks last year. What do you make of that? And what do you think, if anything, that says about college basketball? Or is it just like, it's 1 year, no big deal?
It's still kind of hard to, know exactly what to make out of it, just because obviously the NIL stuff is still really new. And that's still, growing as of the last couple of weeks now, with
That's right.
everything with schools being able to pay players and whatever else, what have you. But, I feel like there's just going to eh, continue to be something that is consistently inconsistent. I think you're going to have some years where it's going to be a ton of international guys, not as many college players. You're going to have a couple more older guys, maybe not saying that that'll outweigh the number of freshmen per se, but probably just more than we're used to seeing. Then you'll have some years like this year where it'll be like, man, it seems like there's a ton of freshmen. I just think that some years it's just going to be a combination of all three. But this year, I think is really interesting to see it kind of go back to something that we feel like we haven't quite seen in quite a little while, where we see so many freshmen doing it, and just not nearly as many international players whose names that I feel like that we heard on tonight. A lot of guys that were familiar. Since when is hearing guys' names and going to the NBA draft, guys that we are familiar with hearing their names? I think that can only be a good thing. And not only that, but there were some guys who made decisions to return back to school and go back to college. Some of these guys will still hear some names a little bit later on tonight, but I think that the other piece is that there are other guys who maybe could have heard their names called, maybe some EJ Haggerty's and maybe a couple other guys probably in that same conversation that decided to kind of go back to school, take the money and go the NIL route and put the NBA on pause, maybe for potential reasons, or, maybe just to knowing that they can't necessarily, be able to be productive at the next level right away, which is, what is funny, we've been having this conversation, to be honest with you, Isaac, because the way that the NBA draft used to be built, I feel like, was you left school early to go off to the NBA because you felt like you could make an immediate impact. Now it's like, you know what? If a guy is older, it has more red flags on him. We want younger guys. We don't care about seeing impact or him being able to produce or contribute to our team within the next 2 to 3 years. How about the next 3 to 5? We'll work on him. We'll build up to what type of player we want to make him, and see what he will be at that time. I don't necessarily love that idea. I kind of think it's a poor business model in some ways, but who am I? I'm just merely DeShaun Tate.
I love it. DeShaun, here's the crazy one. I mentioned it in teasing this segment. The Montverde 2023-24 roster included on it 4 guys that were all selected in the first round on Wednesday night. Cooper Flagg, number 1 overall. Maryland's Derek Queen, number 13 overall. Asa Newell, that played at Georgia, 23 overall. And UConn's Liam McNeely, 29th overall. And oh, by the way, Rob Wright, who probably is going to get drafted at some point, who is transferring from from Baylor to BYU this year, was on that same team as well, man. Can you imagine playing that collection in high school, that it's like, hey, what if I told you 2 years from now, these dudes are all going in the first round? That's crazy, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely nuts. And I heard someone mention earlier on the broadcast that they do a fine job with, by the way. That someone mentioned something about this might be the best high school, constructed roster that we've ever seen. I'm not sure that I'll go that far. I'm not also going to debate it too much because that's a heck of a freaking roster, dude, to be really honest with you. I mean, listen, for a guy like a Liam McNeely, who's one of the best players in the country coming out of high school, I think it was a commit originally to IU, spurned them, and then ended up at UConn. And obviously, Asa Newell, the job that he's been able to do, being at Georgia, not necessarily like a powerhouse program or anything like that. that, was still really good enough to be able to commit to a program that was better than Georgia, decided to stay home. What does he get in return? Another opportunity to be able to stay home in Atlanta and play with the Hawks. And definitely reminds me more of one of those type of players that's, kind of a combination of a few different guys. I kind of think about a Joakim Noah to a degree, a Derek Lively, a little bit of a pinch of him. Who was the other guy that played at Georgia? Now that I'm thinking about it, that's now with the Brooklyn Nets. Can't think of his name to save my life, but definitely playing in the front court. I think by adding some rim protection, that's just and we didn't even get into the Cooper Flags of the world and all that other kind of stuff. That alone, just that the makeup of that roster, I think is just absolutely phenomenal. And to think that they could have just continued to keep going. And remember, wasn't it just not too long ago that we did hear about, and I can't think of who was on that Montverde roster, but I think it was Cade Cunningham and quite a few other guys, like 3 or 4 different guys all on the same roster. There's definitely some competition in that prep school thing that they've got going on. I kind of hate that, the public school thing isn't really working out
Yeah.
as well for
Yeah.
players as
Yeah.
much as it once was, but prolific preps and all that,
Yep. Yep.
they're definitely doing a great job of creating some financial generational wealth through that process, I think.
Well, we do have one. I mean, this is just a look ahead, but St. John Bosco, like a public school out in California, has 3 top 8 players in 26, including Trevor Ariza's son, Taj. So, folks, make sure you have checked out SJB for this upcoming season. Tate, one of the other things I love is that, man, these nights are like I'm a sucker, man. I'm so emotional. I think it may be the dad in me. I'm sure you feel a lot of that too. But I just love the stories of nights like the draft night. And so, for example, Danny Wolf, one of the last guys there in the green room, he and actually McNeely together, just in tears, overwhelmed with the emotion of knowing that he's about to get picked at 27. And also you don't want to go into Thursday being the lone guy left in the green room, right? Whether it's you or McNeely, his mom's weeping, his brother's weeping. Another story, Yannick Conan Niederhauser from Penn State, last pick of the first round, man. The Nittany Lions' first round pick. What a name, right? He's a Swedish guy, if I remember correctly. But Penn State's first ever first round pick. I mean, it's these stories, man, that this is why we do what we do, DeShaun, right? It's the stories of these young men and young women that play the games that we love, and it's just so good.
Yeah, not everybody can be Kyle Filipowski of last year, so let me just leave that part right there. But no, I'll say enough to say that. I mean, that's what it's all about, though. Whether it's some of the guys that you mentioned, I think Kaman Maluwach is probably still crying right now, right alongside of VJ Edgecombe's mom, who couldn't even speak a word. And I mean,
yes.
But no, it's definitely emotional. I mean, think about it. Guys' lives are changing here on tonight. I mean, their dreams are coming true for young men who hasn't dreamed of hearing their name being called growing up. And we already know about the percentages. What is it? Less than 1% of the people that play like high school basketball or whatever it is ends up going pro and being able to hear their names called in the draft and playing on professional sports and things like that. I mean, I can understand all the blood, sweat, and tears, all the playing in the driveway and pulling up at the park and nighttime, and you got the headlights on and shooting still at the park on the late nights, or even growing up in Michigan where I'm from, where it was just really super cold for the majority months of the year, and still outside playing basketball with thick gloves and everything else on, full coats and everything else. It takes you back to that time, all the sweat equity, and even just counting down in the driveway from 10 for that last second shot kind of thing. And it's building, it's a tight-knit community, and it's all about building relationships, and it's a smaller community than a lot of people kind of notice. There hasn't been that many guys that I can say that they have worn a NBA uniform. So I think that it's beautiful to be able to see so far 30 young men hearing their names called, dreams coming true, and of course another 30 coming up later on tonight.
Yes. Crazy stuff. As we carry along just a few quick nuggets. For the first time since 2007, John Calipari did not have a first-round pick from one of his teams, Adu Thero. Still waiting to hear his name called. We expect he'll go pretty early tonight in round 2. Picks by conference. Big Ten led the way with eight of the first 30, SEC 5, ACC 4, Big 12 3, Big East 2, West Coast and Mountain West Conference 1 each. Round 2 look ahead, DeShaun. Just very briefly, anybody you expect or you're looking forward to being taken tonight, whether it's just because it's somebody you enjoy watching or just thinking they'll go off the board early?
Yeah, I think that Ryan Kalkbrenner, I was a little bit slightly surprised.
Yeah.
I knew between he and Danny Wolf, somebody was gonna go in the first round, if not both of them. But the defensive mindset and mentality and production that he brings on the floor from Creighton, I think we'll definitely hear his name relatively early. I think Tyrese Proctor is another one of those guys who will likely hear his name called, and he's been having a lot of eyes on him from these NBA scouts and what have you. Um, the maybe a little bit, definitely not surprising, but just for who Janai Broom was for Auburn this
Mm,
year, I think that not that I anticipated hearing his name called, but I think later on tonight we will hear some of that. And I'm just going through just a couple names. I thought that Cam Jones was one of the better point guards in the country out of Marquette earlier this year. RJ Luis, who was the Big East
Player of the
Big
year,
East
yeah.
Player of the
Wow.
Year, and seeing that he made that decision to leave and stay within the draft. He probably thought he would have been a first round guy. And then probably last but not least, seeing what his brother was able to do. Not even thinking that he would probably be as good of a pro as early as he was was Nimhard
Mm.
over at Indiana. And now we're seeing, obviously Ryan from over at Gonzaga. And I think that he could be in a very similar mode as his brother, being able to maybe surprise some people with being a second round pick, maybe not having the guaranteed money, but eventually having a guaranteed contract. And kind of mimicking some of the things that his brother was able to do since he's been, in the NBA and wearing an Indiana Pacers jersey.
Man, that's a good word. I somebody's got to take a chance on him. You mentioned Cam Jones. There's a whole bunch of big time scorers that are probably
Mhm.
going to go tonight in the second round. Cam Jones, Eric Dixon from Villanova is another big time
That's
scorer.
another one. Yeah.
Chaz Lanier. I'm with you on Kalkbrenner, man. The 3-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year is going to be a stalwart in the front court for somebody. I can't wait to see who that is. So
I,
there's a lot.
and I'll tell you this real quick, Isaac. Not meaning to cut you off. Forgive me.
No,
My
you're great. You're
apologies.
good.
But if Eric Dixon doesn't find a way onto an NBA roster, I'm sure there's a lot of NFL teams out there that'll be more than
That's
happy to pick him up where he can make a little extra coin.
That's right. That dude is thick with 2 C's and maybe a couple K's after. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, he's a large man. You mentioned Tyrese Proctor. There's another Dookie C on James. We expect that'd be 5 total Blue Devils. Crazy stuff. All right. We mentioned it earlier. We need to move on to it now. The Kansas Jayhawks needed more bodies to fill out their roster, and they loaded up multiple times over the last 2 days. We'll get to that in just a second. Right after I tell you about Rougiet. Guys, you have probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiet Ready. Rougiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in just 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rougiet might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made this switch. It's completely online. Rougiet connects you with a board-certified doctor and ships your treatment discreetly to your door. Head to Rougiet.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. Again, that's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiet website for full safety information. Rounding out the show today, we've talked NBA draft the whole time, but now we need to talk some rock chalk Jayhawk. Bill Self and company have needed to add some more pieces to their roster, and they've done so over the course of the last 2 days, have added one to both the front and backcourt in two different ways. Cole Rosario, a class of 26 guard, has reclassed and committed to Coach Self and the Jayhawks. And then on Wednesday, leading up to the draft, Paul Mbia from Congo, who had previously committed to NC State, decommitted, now has also committed to Kansas. Derek Johnson, our great host of Locked on Jayhawks, was on with me last week and said that he felt like the Jayhawks really needed to add multiple pieces, and boy, have they done it. DeShaun, I know we got to be quick here because we're running a bit long. Draft talk is always good. But what do you make of these two additions, either Rosario and or Paul Mbia?
Yeah, it looks like Kansas is going from rock chalk Jayhawk to can't stop Jayhawk. The way that they're just constantly able to just kind of recycle players is what it feels like, and especially with Rosario. He's been probably, if not the hottest name, right up there with some of the hottest names. That has been on the circuit and playing some really good basketball. And just the athleticism kind of popping off the page. He's been one of the hottest names, man, and I can understand and I can see why. Being able to shoot the basketball pretty well too. I mean, he's doing a fantastic job. I can see him fitting in really well, and um, probably not surprising a whole lot of people. I can really see his game transitioning well from the high school level to the collegiate level. I think he's gonna be a really special treat for the people there in Lawrence.
Yeah, man. And it's kind of a bummer because I've been enjoying seeing highlights and games and stuff of him this summer. And like you see, I think back to last summer, like a Caden Lewis was the example I think of from last summer, who just skyrocketed up the ranks. We saw a lot of that from Rosario this summer. And I was like, man, I'm excited to keep watching him, see his recruitment play out even more. But man, good for him. Good for the Jayhawks, as you said, to get a 6'5" dude to add to the backcourt along with Darren Peterson, take some pressure off of him. Good grief, man. Should be a lot of fun. Lawrence is just like 2.5 hours up the road from me. I might have to get up there to Allen Fieldhouse and check this out.
Take me with you, Isaac. Take me with you.
Don't come on, behind. Bro. We will caravan and go up there together, get some good barbecue and see what we need to do in the Kansas City area. As for Mbia, man, NC State's loss is Kansas's gain, because obviously the Kansas, for the Jayhawks, getting Flory Badunga back this offseason is massive. Entered the transfer portal, decided to come back. They have Bryson Tiller, who enrolled back in January, was a redshirt. He's coming back from injury, but getting just some more depth there in the front court, where we've seen so many dudes just be dudes. I'll just use that word again for Kansas in that front court, man. I think this is just a good depth piece. I don't think either of these guys has to start, going back to Rosario as well. But, man, I think they will be a part of this rotation for sure.
I agree. When you look at some of the guys that they've had over the years, it's probably not much of a surprise. And even some of the guys, that have some really interesting backgrounds to go along with that. Some of them didn't even play for an extremely long period of time, but were definitely very productive. Some of the Czech Diallos and some of the Udoka Azabukis of the world. And
yes,
I think that they're just consistent with it. They're finding a way to put guys in position and in place. And what better time to do that than when you have someone that was as dominant as the Hunter Dickinson was for the last couple of years for them. So the Kansas is just going to continue to do Kansas things, and that's not always a bad thing. I mean, if you start looking at some of these programs around the country that realistically can really have a case every single year coming in to being the number one preseason pick to win a national championship, and going into the tournament is likely, I know this year was a little bit different, but likely going in to be a front runner for a national championship as the number one seed on Selection Sunday. It's always and forever seemed like it's gonna be Kansas, and so they're doing themselves one heck of a job by keeping the ball rolling the way that they have with their recruiting as of late.
Yeah, I mean, talking about results on the court, it's been weird this past season to see them finish outside the top of the Big 12, with Houston coming in as an interloper and just dominating this thing. And so it's just good for college basketball to get the Jayhawks back. So hopefully they can ascend into that territory. Really excited to see both these guys. For Mbia, he is a 6'11", 260-pound center, 7'8" wingspan, DeShaun, and that's from the official release from Kansas. So you can trust those numbers. Last year, played in the top tier level A French Pro League, averaged 15.3 points, 11.7 rebounds, and 3 blocks a game. So if literally, I mean, even you drop that a little bit, if he can go 12, 8, and 2 or something like that, that'd be a massive number for what Kansas does. By the way, supporting behind Flory Badunga. So really interested to see this. DeShaun, maybe the last word here. Do you expect, just going back to what I said in terms of the on-court results, I know it's early, man. It's just late June, but do you think we'll see Kansas get back to being Kansas this year in any way, or still kind of off the path a little bit there?
I think that I think that we will. One thing about Kansas that I've noticed is they tend to stand in their own way sometimes, but I don't think that happens too often back-to-back years that we can say that about them. And so, they're going to have those instances where they get dumped early when they, make the NCAA tournament and, fall to a Bucknell or a Northern Iowa or whatever, what have you. But that doesn't typically happen too consistently for them. I think that we'll see them get back, especially when you have guys like Peterson and some of these other ones. I mean, they get the pick of the litter on a regular basis. And when you start talking about a guy who's arguably or inarguably at this point probably the best coach in college basketball, I'm sure some other people in Stores, Connecticut, and other places have things to say about that. But you can't go against the resume and what he's been able to put in place there. And so I think that Rock Chalk will be just fine. Trust me. They've got really good problems to have.
Yes, indeed they do. All right. Well, that'll wrap it up for tonight, recapping round 1 of the NBA draft, looking at these pickups that the Jayhawks have got. Andy will be back with you on Friday to wrap round 2 of the NBA draft and kind of big picture takeaways. So make sure you stay tuned for that on Friday. Big thanks to our buddy DeShaun Tate for joining us, man, talking great stuff. We got some Sparty in the background there. Had some Jace Richardson love in round 1. That was great to see. If you haven't given him a follow, please make sure you do so at Tate's Take Hoops. Great stuff there. If you've not subscribed to the show on video and audio, make sure you do that right now so you don't miss a second of Locked On College Basketball. If you're not part of the Locked On College Basketball Discord community, man, we'd love to see you in there. That link is in the show notes. Absolutely free to join. As always, want to say apologies to the Lawyer family. Let's go Wild Pokes. Cheers to our guy Mick Bruins, and until tomorrow, peace.